without much ado, let's begin. Let's start with the first part, which is the diet. Now, in this, we're going to look at the various foods that comprise the food that makes up the human body, that helps the human body to survive and to succeed. So we're going to look at what is the meaning of balanced diet. We're going to look at the source where we get balanced diet from. We're going to look at the causes, the state causes of the scurvy and the ricket. When you lack some certain food, what are food you lack in your body that can cause scurvy and ricket in your body? And I also describe the use of the DCP-IP test for vitamins. You know, the DCP-IP test is used for testing vitamin C if it's present in any food. Now, let's start with the very first one, which is balanced diet. What's a balanced diet? A balanced diet is a diet or a food that contains all the right amount of all the following food nutrients, okay? The right amount of the following food nutrients. So when you have adequate and the right amount of carbohydrate in your food, the right amount of fats in your food, the right amount of proteins in your food, the right amount of vitamins in your food, the right amount of minerals in your food, the right amount of water, quantity of water your body needs, and the right amount of fiber. We call it dietary fibers, like raw veggies. Raw veggies are fibers, like the vegetables and all of this, the broccolis. Okay, the right amount of those type of things, if you have all of these on daily basis, then you consider to have balanced diet. Your body is considered to have balanced diet. When you lack it, you can see this baby, the bones are very bent, so it's suffering from what? It's suffering from balanced diet. And one of the food is suffering from is vitamin C's and minerals and so on and so forth. Is that okay? Now let's move on to vitamins and minerals, what that child is suffering from. Let's take a look at the very first part of vitamin C's, the vitamins and the minerals. Let's take a look at the vitamins and the minerals. We start with vitamin C and vitamin D, and then we'll go to some minerals. We're taking a look at vitamin C and vitamin D. These are very important. Vitamin B and A are also very important. Look like they are not important. Vitamin A helps the eyes. Okay, helps the eyes. Vitamin B gives every of the nutrients in your body that your body needs to do well. Vitamin C, in this case, let's take a look at where do you get it from. You can get it, the source of vitamin C. Where you can get vitamin C from, you can get them from citrus fruits, such as your lemons, your limes, your oranges, and so on and so forth. You can also get it from your pawpaw, what you call pawpaw, papaya. You get it from banana and green vegetable. You can get vitamin C from all of this. So make sure when you eat your meals, you get all of this food to go alongside with your main dish. Okay, so they are ascorbic, we call them ascorbic acid, vitamin C's. And now the function, what do they do for our body? They need them for the synthesis of collagen. So you need them to make collagens in our body. And now a protein needed to help. A collagen is a protein, okay? A collagen is a protein. It's always in multiple choice in a Cambridge IGCSE. So you need to know this. A collagen is a protein that is needed to help the wound, healing of the wound. Like whenever you get injury, there's a protein that helps you to heal the wound, to heal very fast. Okay, they got it from vitamin C. So the making of collagen, which is the making of this protein that helps the wound to heal, and binds together very fast and help the cells to bind very fast. You get it from vitamin C. Now, what is the disease that comes from it if you don't have enough vitamin C? It's called scurvy, like your swollen and bleeding gums. Your gums in the mouth, your gums, okay? They will be swollen and they will bleed. These are called scurvy. This disease is called scurvy. Internal bleeding also in your muscles, internal bleeding in your muscles, in your skills, and difficulty in wounds to heal. Anytime you have injury, very difficult to heal, and painful swellings in your joints. Your joint will be swollen and will be feeling a lot of pains and so on and so forth. Body pains means you're lacking vitamin C. Anytime you feel a lot of body pains, unnecessarily body pains, and swelling your joints, and all of these things are lack of vitamin C. Now we go to vitamin D. See, vitamin D is very important for the formation of strong bones and teeth. Vitamin D, you can get it from early morning suns. You can get early morning sun. You can get vitamin D from it. But apart from getting it from early morning sun, vitamin D, it also can be obtained from egg yolk, liver oil, cod liver oil, sardine, which is fish, tuna, which is fish, and salmon, which is fish. So ordinarily you get a lot of vitamin D also from fish. So when you eat a lot of fish, you are happy your teeth, you are happy your bones. Is that okay? Now the disease that can come from, okay, before we talk about the disease, let's talk about the function. What is the function of vitamin D? Vitamin D is used to promote absorption of calcium and phosphate from your intestine, like especially from your small intestine into your bloodstream, the absorption. You know, the digested food has to be absorbed into the body, right? To the body cells. So that absorption is made easily possible by vitamin D in your body. If you lack vitamin D, then absorption of digested food nutrient becomes almost very difficult, and hence you start having things like high blood pressure and so on and so forth, and many other problems as time progresses, as you age, and helps to keep your teeth strong and your bones strong. So what the disease? The disease is rickets in children, risk of tooth decay. Your teeth can start decaying if you lack vitamin D. Bones becomes very soft, you're not strong, and if you have big weight, your body's size is big, you start having bent, your bone become bent, and you are liable to so many other problems and so on and so forth. So where you can get it from, you eat food. We already mentioned this, the food you need to eat to get vitamin D. Now let's move on to the dietary roughage, or what you call fiber, dietary fiber or roughages. Now roughage are obtained from vegetables like broccoli, like chili, tomatoes, onions, garlic, and so on and so forth. Some of these things, they help in digestion. Okay, dietary fibers such as cellulose, we also call that cellulose, in the plants it's called cellulose, such as cellulose present in plant matters and acid, and aids in the digestion of food substances. So if you want not to have what we call constipation, you want easy digestion. Every time you eat, the food is easily digested. You have to eat a lot of broccoli, vegetables, onions, limes, tomatoes, concubine. All of these things you have to consume alongside when you make your food, when you cook your food. Okay, now cellulose cannot be digested in our body, cannot be digested, but they aid in digestion. Now, this stimulates the intestinal walls to contract in a process called peristalsis. We're going to talk about peristalsis when we talk about the movement of the bolus as it moves through the esophagus. As we move further, we're going to talk about that. Now, before we move on, we also say peristalsis prevents constipation. So when there's proper peristalsis, it will prevent constipation. Okay. And now let's move on to the next one. DCP, like we said, DCPIP, remember in the exam, is in multiple choice exam in Cambridge, is used for testing vitamin C. DCPI, you know when we talked about what we use for testing for protein, the burette, right? The burette solution for testing for protein, the Benedict for testing for the starch and so on and so forth. We've talked about the different ones. So you can go to our earlier video and see what we use for all of this. Now here, before we move on to this section, which is nutrition, section 2, 7.2, nutrition and the human digestive system. Here we're going to talk about more about the alimentary canal, which comprises from the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, and the anus. So we're going to talk about this in this section. Now let's quickly look at that section. But before we talk about what is nutrition, you see, if you want to have healthy babies, you have to have healthy growth, you have to have all food nutrients. You see vegetable, you see cabbage, you see carrot, concubine, vegetable. You have to eat all of these things in order to have what is needed. Nutrition is the process by which organisms obtain their food and energy for what? Nutrition is the process by which organisms get the food and energy for what? Why do we get it? Why do we need food and energy? For growth. Because we want to grow healthy, we want to grow better, we want to look happier, and for repairs. Every time we have damaged cells in our body, the body is able to, the food you eat helps to repair the damaged cells. Not only help you to grow, also help you to repair damaged cells. Also the maintenance of the body. Okay, the maintenance of our body. So that's what nutrition is for. Nutrition is supposed to get food and energy for growth, for repair, and for maintaining the body. Now in humans, nutrition consists of the following, right? Process. What are the process? One is feeding or injections. Feeding, like process of taking in your food through your mouth to the rest of the body. That's the first part, feeding, or what you call ingestion. The second phase that follows your feeding is digestion. The food has to be broken down to smaller units that can be absorbed or can be absorbed into the body and assimilated. Okay, so the next one after digestion is absorption in the small intestine and the assimilation in our cells. Is that okay? So these are the process of nutrition, all the process we're going to follow. Now we start with the first one, which is called the human digestive system. Now the human digestive system consists of the alimentary canal, which we already start to mention, the alimentary canal, and the organs that follows the alimentary canal. What are the organs? The liver and the pancreas. This is the liver, this one. This is the liver, and this is the pancreas. Okay, the liver produces the bile. Okay, produces the bile. Okay, the bile emulsify fat. Emulsify fat and break it to fatty acid and glycerol. You need to know this. It emulsifies it and helps it before the lipase act on it, and the lipase helps to break it proper. First of all, emulsify it and make it soft. Okay, emulsifies it and makes it soft, and then this that's what the liver does. It produces the bile, but this bile is stored in the gallbladder. The bile that is produced is stored in the gallbladder. Okay. Now, what is the job of this one? This yungu, this one, and this one, the pancreas produces what? The pancreas produces pancreatic juice. Produces the pancreatic juice. That pancreatic juice comprises of the trypsin, which is the enzyme that digests protein that is remaining, that is not finished, the job that is not finished in the stomach. Okay, and then it also has the lipase. It has the amylase also. So all these ones are produced and they act on the food. Now the stomach, what do we have? The stomach has gastric juice. The gastric juice produces the hydrochloric acid, and also has the hydrochloric acid and has Pepsi. You know Pepsi? The enzymes of protein are called proteins. These proteins comprise of two, the Pepsi and the trypsin. The Pepsi is in the gastric juice, produced secreted in the gastric juice, and the hydrochloric acid, which helps to kill the germs in the food and emulsify the food. These are the two organs, the liver and the pancreas, that goes along with the alimentary canal. What are the alimentary canal? The mouth. The mouth comprises of three main things that helps aid in digestion. The first one is the teeth. The teeth helps to break down the food. And then the second one is the tongue. The tongue helps to roll the food. The third one is the saliva, produced by the salivary glands. You can see the salivas or salivary glands produced by the salivary glands produce the saliva that helps to emulsify the food and put it in a bolus. Then the food can now travel through the esophagus. This long pipe is called esophagus, or what we also call the gullet. Okay, also called the gullet. And then the food travel through this esophagus to the stomach. When it gets to the stomach, the first thing that begins to act on it is that the gastric juice secretes hydrochloric acid and secretes Pepsi to act on the food. And then after that, the food travels down, is broken down and changed to solution form, and travel down to the small intestine through the duodenum, the upper part of the small intestine. And then when it gets to small intestine, then the trypsin and the Pepsi has been secreted by the pancreas, and then the lipase start to act in the small intestine, and the trypsin start to act in the small intestine. And then after, when that is done, from the duodenum, which is the upper part, the duodenum, and then the food begins to break down. When it's break, then it's absorbed. It's absorbed in the small intestine. The undigested food is then passed into the large intestine, and then the water is absorbed from the large intestine. That's the only thing that is beneficial, that is taken from the large intestine. The water is absorbed in the large intestine, and then the undigested one moves to the rectum, and then from the rectum, when you feel pressed, you go and easy through the anus. So this is the human summary of the human digestive system, but we're going to look at it bit by bit later on. Let's begin to look at it step by step, like we've mentioned. The human digestive system. The first stage is this is the first stage. The human digestive system is the mouth. The mouth is the first stage of the human digestion, and the digestion of food starts from the mouth. What are the three things that helps in the digestion of food in the mouth? Is the teeth, the salivary glands, and the tongue. These are the three things that participate in the digestion of food. The teeth breaks the food into smaller units. Salivary gland adds saliva, which helps to emulsify it, which helps to soften it, which helps to make it able to put in a ball-like form. The tongue helps to roll the food, and then the food now goes through the esophagus to the stomach. Now we go to the second stage, which is the esophagus. The esophagus, there is a process that is happening in the esophagus called the peristalsis. Peristalsis. Okay, you need to pay attention. Peristalsis. Peristalsis is the movement of the food, the wave-like movement, constriction and expansion of the walls of the esophagus or the walls of the gullet. Okay, so that process is called peristalsis. Now the esophagus or the gullet is a narrow muscular tube where food passes. This is a tube. Okay, it's a tube. The food is larger than it, but everywhere the food is expands. Okay, it dilates. We call it dilation. It dilates. It's swollen, gets swollen. Okay, it dilates. And but here is constriction. This is where the food has passed. Anywhere you see this constriction, the food has passed here. So the food cannot go back. That's why when we eat food, the food don't come out again from our mouth. It constricts so that the food do not go back. Okay, the food can only go forward. So in the exam, they may draw this and they will ask you which direction will the food go. If you see a drawing like this, they will not show you this direction. They will not show you any direction. Like here now, they're telling you the direction of movement of the food. They show you with an arrow. In the exam paper, they will not show you with the arrow. They can ask you which direction, where will this food go? The food is not going here. Here is already constricted. The food is actually coming from here. So wherever the food has passed, it will constrict like this. And here we dilate. That means to expand. And the food will continue to find its balance like this. And it will be the wave-like motion of the food in the esophagus is called what? Peristalsis. It's called peristalsis. You need to know this one in multiple choice question. The wave-like movement of the food in the one is called the peristalsis. Okay. Now, you said the esophagus is a narrow muscular tube where the food passes in a wave-like construction called the peristalsis. It's moving like a wave. Look at it. It goes down here, goes up, goes down. When the food gets here, here will go up again. It go down, be like a wave motion. Be like a wave. It will be like this, like a wave motion. It will be like a wave motion. Okay. Now where it's swollen like this, where the expansion of the food, where the food is called dilation. Please take note. And where it comes together to close like this is called constriction. Okay, so that's for the esophagus. Now let's go to the third part, which is the stomach. Okay, we only talk a little briefly. The stomach is a distensible muscular bag. It's like a bag. Okay, distensible muscular bag. Distensible can be stretched or expanded, something that you can stretch or expand. That's why we call it distensible. The word distensible means something you can expand. So stomach can expand. Okay, so it's a distensible muscular bag with a very thick and well-developed muscular walls. The walls are developed and they're thick. Of course, if they're not thick, then we'll have problem. Food will not be able to stay long in the stomach. Okay. Now, the stomach has what we call the gastric juice glands. These gastric glands secrete the gastric juice. These gastric glands, the glands like these ones in the stomach, they secrete the gastric juice. Okay, let's see the gastric glands. These are the glands. All these ones are the glands. And you have pit here. This is the stomach wall. This is the wall of the stomach. Okay. So that's what the stomach has what we call the gastric glands. That gastric glands secrete the gastric juice. In the gastric juice, you have the hydrochloric acid, which kills the microbes or microbacteria that comes in with the food, and also reduce the amylase coming from the stomach. Reduce the content of the amylase coming from the coming from the mouth. Reduce the amylase coming from the mouth. And then another thing, the stomach also, the gastric juice contains the pepsin. The pepsin, which is a protein enzymes that helps to bring down the protein. Is that okay? Now let's move on quickly. Now the fourth one is the small intestine. Look at the small intestine. This small intestine is about 6 meters long. It's very long. You know what 1 meter is from your feet, from your fingers to the other side of your shoulder. Not the if you stretch your arm to the other side of your shoulder. So you can imagine 1 meter. Okay, the small intestine is about 6 meters long, means it's very long. Okay, so for the earlier part of the small intestine, this earlier part is called the duodenum, and this one is called ileum. The later part is ileum. The small intestine has walls. The walls of this one are called villi. And then the digestion takes place in the villi and microvilli. Okay, we're going to talk about that later on. Okay, so that's there for the small intestine. This is where absorption of digested food takes place. In fact, digestion is completed in the small intestine. Any food that is not digested will pass from here and enter the large intestine. The large intestine contains two, just like the way small intestine contains two named duodenum and ileum. Duodenum is the first part, which is like a U shape. Duodenum, the first part of the small intestine is duodenum, and the later one is called ileum. Okay, the large intestine also contains two parts, which are called the colon and the rectum. Rectum and the colon. Is that okay? So we're going to talk about that. Let's go to the fifth one. We talked about the fifth one, which is the large intestine. Let's go to the sixth one. The sixth one is the pancreas. Remember when we talk about the alimentary canal, we also say there are organs that go with the alimentary canal. These organs are the livers and the pancreas. So let's talk about, and the gallbladder. You can have the gallbladder. Okay, we can say the liver, the pancreas, and the gallbladder. These three organs, they go with the alimentary canal in the digestion of food in our body. Now let's take a look at the pancreas. The pancreas is very super important. It's very important. It's responsible for, when you have high sugar, low sugar in your body, you have diabetes, the pancreas has a role it plays in it, okay, because it secretes the hormones also, the hormones which regulate your sugar content, and they are secreted in the pancreas. Okay, so the pancreas not only secrete the pancreatic juice, it also secretes hormones. Okay, so you join in with us if you want to study medicine in the university. You join in with us to pay attention very well. We can explain all these details to you. Okay, so the pancreas is an organ that secretes pancreatic juice and hormones. It's an organ that secretes pancreatic juice. In this pancreatic juice, what do we have in it? We have the trypsin, which they help to digest protein. We have other things. Okay, we're going to talk about later. So now let's talk about. We already know the function of this one, and we say this is the pancreas. This is the pancreas. This one, it looks like a leaf somehow. This road is called the pancreatic duct. Is the duct. It looks like a road. Okay, it's called the pancreatic duct. Okay, probably maybe that's where the pancreatic juice flow through to join the food that is coming from the stomach. Remember, this is the stomach. The digested food or semi-digested food that is coming from the stomach passes through the duodenum. This is the duodenum, the small intestine. The beginning of the small intestine is called duodenum. So the pancreatic juice that is flowing from the pancreas joins the food from here. Join the food. But that's not the only thing, because before the pancreatic juice join the food, the bile from the that is stored in the gallbladder. Remember, the bile is produced by the liver but stored in the gallbladder. This is the gallbladder. This is the whole big shape up to this side. This one is the liver. Now it produces the bile. The job of the liver is to produce the bile. But not only the job it does in the body, it also helps in the nutrient assimilations and the assimilation and absorption. It also helps. Okay, but the major job it does is the liver does. That's why when you have liver problem, you go to die. You don't have a part 2, safe 2, whatever, content 2. Once your liver has problem, you go to die because you cannot secrete the bile, and the bile is what emulsifies the fats, and there will be no fat digestion in your body, so you go to die very soon. Okay, so the liver produce the bile, and the bile is stored in the gallbladder. Now, whenever food is coming in, then the gallbladder releases some of the bile to join the fatty food and emulsify it, soften it, and make it ready for digestion. And that's for that. Now, let's talk about the liver itself now. We've talked about the pancreas. The liver produces the bile, and it's involved in the assimilation. You see? Assimilation of the nutrient. So it has two jobs it does. It produces the bile to help to emulsify the fatty food. Not only that, it also helps in the assimilation of nutrient. Okay, taking the food, the nutrient. Okay, assimilation of the nutrient. Okay, so that's that for that. Now let's go to the eighth one, which is the gallbladder. This is the gallbladder. The gallbladder stores the bile. That's the major job it does. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Almighty God, created the gallbladder for. To store it and release it when needed. Store it and release it when it's needed. Let's move to the next one. Okay, now see this exam question. You see, this exam question. You can find this in the Igcse paper, and they ask you first, say, figure below, blah blah blah, whatever it is, shows the mass of food as it moves along the small intestine. Now, what happens to the walls of the alimentary canal at the region marked A, at the region here? What happens? Constrict. It constricts. So the food constricts. This constriction. Okay, that's what happens. And then draw an arrow. The process is known peristalsis, known as peristalsis. Now, it said draw an arrow in the diagram to show the direction in which the food is moving. So draw an arrow to show the food is not going this way. Okay, obviously, because the food does not go back. So the food is going this way. Food is traveling this way. This is the direction of the food. Okay, so these are simple questions. They ask you multiple choice questions and so on and so forth. Okay, now the next section is section 3, which is digestion in human. We're going to look at the digestions in human. But basically, I've explained all of this, so we're going to run through them as quickly as we can. First, we start with the digestion. What is digestion? Digestion is the process whereby large food molecules are broken down into smaller ones. Large food, so all you need to say, large food molecule, processed by large food molecules are broken down to smaller units, right? Or what we call soluble molecules that can be absorbed into the body system or equal to the body cells. So that's the meaning of digestion. The process whereby large food molecules are broken to smaller food molecules or into soluble molecules that can be absorbed into the body cells. That's the meaning. Digestion is divided into two. Number one, we have the physical digestion. Number two, we have the physical or mechanical. You can say physical/mechanical digestion. The second one is called the chemical digestion. Now let's start with the first one, the physical digestion. Now, the mechanical breakdown of food by your teeth. You know, when you take food, you chew, you cut it with your teeth, you break it, you bite, you chew it. It's a physical digestion, you're breaking the food down. That's a mechanical process. The mechanical breakdown of food into smaller pieces without any chemical change to it is called the physical digestion. Without even the saliva acting on it, just your teeth breaking the food to smaller units. You're chewing rice, you're chewing whatever you're chewing. That process of you breaking the food to tiny particles is called physical digestion. Now let's go to the chemical digestion. Chemical digestion is when the enzymes and the salivas and whatever acts on the food and further break it down into smaller units. That's called the chemical digestion. Now, for chemical digestion, the chemical digestion is the breaking down of the large molecules of food into smaller soluble molecules that can be absorbed into the bloodstream or that can be absorbed into the body cells. That's what we call chemical digestion. Okay, by enzymes or digestive juice. Okay, now let's move on quickly. Let's take a look at the two processes. It's a process that involve processes that take place in the mouth. First, you put food in your mouth, the teeth will break it down. This is the physical digestion. The teeth will break it down. And then the salivary gland will secrete some salivas to the food. Okay? We secrete some salivas. This salivary gland secretes some saliva to mix with the food, and the tongue will help to roll the food. Okay, and then before the food starts to go down. So you see, in the mouth, chewy breaks up the food, and mucus softens the food. The mucus, which is the saliva that has been released, softens the food. Then the food is rolled into bola. Bolu is singular, bola is plural, and passed down in the esophagus. It's rolled in a ball-like shape and passed down through the esophagus to the. So this is digestion in the mouth. What the process of digestion in the mouth? Now let's take a look at a digestive process that takes place in the stomach. Now in the stomach, the gastric juice secretes the gastric glands. In the stomach we have glands called the gastric glands. They secrete what we call the gastric juice. Okay, they secrete the gastric juice. Okay, and the aim is to produce chymes. These chymes, food that has been in solution form and put together. Now peristalsis, that's the movement of the food from the mouth through the esophagus, okay, in a wave-like form. So peristalsis in the stomach, we also have the movement in the stomach. In fact, the whole of alimentary canal. Peristalsis in the stomach wall chews and break up the food and also mixes the food with the gastric juice that has been produced from the gastric glands. Okay, so the food is broken down and is mixed with in the stomach. The movement of the food in the stomach, which is the peristalsis, helps to break down the food, and the food is mixed with the gastric juice secreted by the gastric glands. Now the next step is the dilute hydrochloric acid in the gastric juice. There's hydrochloric acid, not concentrated one. Okay, I know. Say acid in our stomach, yes, it's a dilute acid, not a concentrated acid. So it's from the gastric juice, and it will stop the actions of the salivary amylase. Okay, the saliva from the amylase from the mouth, it will stop it. Like your job is done, quit. Okay, like this is not your jurisdiction. So it will stop the salivary amylase and provide the acidic medium suitable for what? The Pepsi. It first of all provide the acidic medium for the Pepsi to act, to break down the food. For the Pepsi to act, to begin to break protein food. Okay, and kills that's not the only job, it kills every harmful microorganisms that is found in the food. Then the next thing, after the gastric juice has been mixed with the food, then that same gastric juice, the Pepsi will start to act. Once hydrochloric acid has been mixed with the food, the Pepsi will start to act because the environment is ready now. The job of the hydrochloric acid is to stop the salivary amylase and also emulsify the food with the acid itself and make it ready for Pepsi to act. Now Pepsi in the gastric juice digests the protein and short chain of amino acid. This short chain of amino acid, not complete amino acid, is called polypeptides. It's called polypeptides. So it's not fully amino acid yet, but short chains. Okay, it's called polypeptides. Okay, now the partly digested food becomes liquefied, becomes like a liquid, forming chyme. It is this chyme that goes into the small intestine. Partly digested food is partly digested, not 100% digested. It's now a chyme. Look at this, the chyme. It was big before, the food was big before. Now you can see it's watery and it's called chyme. It's partly digested, not 100%. There's still digested particle in the food, but some of it has been digested by the Pepsi. So the partly digested one is called chyme. This chyme enters the duodenum. The chyme passes in small amount into the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. It moves into the duodenum, which is the small part of the small intestine, when the ring of muscles and the lower part of the stomach relaxes. When the muscles in the lower part of the stomach relaxes, it passes down to the small intestine, the duodenum. Okay. Now let's see the next one. Now the digestive process take place in small intestine. Let's see the processes that take place in the chymes enters the small intestine. We already know what is chyme, right? Chyme is a partly digested food from the stomach that enters the duodenum. Okay, it enters the small intestine and it stimulates what? When this food, the partly digested food, enters the small intestine, this is what happens. The pancreas, it will stimulate what? The pancreas. This chyme, when it enters the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine, it will stimulate the pancreas to secrete pancreatic juice. To stimulate, to activate, to wake up the pancreas that was relaxing, to secrete the pancreatic juice. Remember the pancreatic juice, what it contains? Contains the trypsin, contains the lipid, contains so many other things. Okay? Contains even some hormones. So it will stimulate the pancreas to secrete the pancreatic juice when the chyme enters the duodenum part of the small intestine. It will also stimulate the gallbladder to release the bile so that it can emulsify the fat and make it soft for digestion. It will also stimulate the chyme food when it enters the small intestine. It will also stimulate the epithelial cells. This is very important. The epithelial cells in the small intestine to produce the enzyme maltase and lipase. To produce this enzyme maltase and lipase. You know the maltase will digest the maltose. You know maltose to glucose. Maltase will digest the maltose to glucose, the final stage of carbohydrate digestion, and lipase will digest the emulsified fat into fatty acid and glycerol. So there are three jobs when the food enters the small intestine. There are three jobs that happen, three processes that happen. One is that the food, the chyme, we call it chyme this time around. The chyme, when it enters the duodenum or the upper part of the small intestine, it stimulates the pancreas to release the pancreatic juice, number one. Number two, it stimulates the gallbladder to release the bile. Number three, it also stimulates the epithelial cells to secrete or to release the enzyme amylase and lipid. Is that okay? So let's move to the next one. Now the next one is the digestions of different food. Now let's take a look at the digestion of food. Starch, how are carbohydrates digested? Starch, which are carbohydrates, whenever the pancreatic amylase act on them, they break them to maltose. Like from the mouth, pancreatic amylase, whenever they act on them, they break them to maltose. And whenever maltase that is secreted in the epithelial cells of the small intestine, whenever maltase is now released, maltase will break the maltose to glucose. Maltase, this is an enzyme. This maltase is an enzyme. This maltase will break the maltose to glucose. Okay, and this maltase is secreted by the epithelial cells of the small intestine. Okay, now that's for starchy food. How are protein food digested? Some protein digestion begins in the stomach. Protein is digested both in stomach and the small intestine. Okay, it starts from the stomach, it ends in the small intestine for protein food. Now, in the stomach, Pepsi is used to digest the protein to produce polypeptides. Pepsi act on the food and change the protein to polypeptides, which we call smaller chains of amino acid. Okay, or a little bigger chains of amino acid. Protein, Pepsi add to it to produce polypeptides. Now, the all digested protein, the one that is not digested, because not all the proteins are digested. They will be digested in the small intestine by trypsin. The undigested protein that enters the small intestine are digested by trypsin. Because protease is the enzyme. Protease is divided to Pepsi and trypsin. First in the stomach, from the gastric juice that is secreted by the gastric glands, secrete the Pepsi that act on the food in the stomach to digest some and change them to chymes. These chymes, on entry the small intestine, it stimulates the pancreas to secrete the pancreatic juice to add to the food. It stimulates the gallbladder to release the bile to add on the food. It also stimulates the epithelial cell wall to produce the enzymes like the maltase and the lipase to add on the food. So for protein in the small intestine, trypsin will act on them to also produce polypeptides. After these two polypeptides, when they now reach the epithelial cells, the enzyme protease finally act on them to bring them to amino acid, to bring them down to amino acid in the small intestine. Now let's move on. The digestions of different food. First, let's take a look at fats. Big fat droplets are emulsified in the tiny fat droplet. Emulsification is by bile. The job of the bile is to break the large fat molecules to small fat molecules. That's the essence of the bile that is produced by the liver, stored in the bladder. So the bile, that's why if your liver has problem, you cannot digest fatty food. So because this large molecule cannot be digested by the lipid, cannot be digested by the lipid, which is the enzyme that digests fat. So it needs to first of all be broken to small fat, small fat, fatty tiny droplets of fat. Okay, the emulsification is what the bile does and reduces to smaller fats after it's being emulsified. And then this emulsified one, lipase cannot act on this one and break it into fatty acid and glycerol. So the job of the bile is first of all to reduce the big fat droplet to small tiny fat droplet, emulsified one. It is this emulsified one that the lipid can act upon. Lipid will break it to fatty acid and glycerol. That's the digestion process of fatty food. Now let's go to the summary, table of summary for this region of the digestion. In the mouth, the secretion, what is secreted is saliva by the salivary gland. The source is the salivary gland, which secretes the saliva, and the enzyme is called the amylase, salivary amylase. Okay, the enzyme that acts on the food in the mouth is the salivary amylase. What does it do? Is it breaks fat food to maltose. It breaks fat to maltose or sucrose. Okay. Then in the stomach we have the source is the gastric glands, which secrete what? Which produce, you can say, which produce the gastric juice. This gastric juice will act on the food, and the enzyme they have is Pepsi, which start to break the protein food to chymes and send to small intestine. So what the Pepsi does is to digest or break down the protein food to polypeptides. Please remember this. Now in the small intestine, there are many jobs that is taking place in the small intestine. One is the bile, another one is the liver, another one is bile. What the job they do. Now the bile add to the bile is produced by what? The source is the liver, right? The source is the liver. The liver produces the bile. Okay. Now this bile, it doesn't have what we call enzyme, but this bile is able to break down the large fat food to smaller fat food. We call it bile emulsified fat. Make it into smaller fats so that lipid can break it later on. That's one job in the small intestine. Another job in the small intestine is the pancreas. There are three things in the small intestine that you need to know if you want to pass. One is the liver, the job of the liver. One is the job of the pancreas. The pancreas, they produce or secrete what we call the pancreatic juice. Now this pancreatic juice contains these following things: trypsin, amylase, and lipid. Now the trypsin is to digest the remaining proteins that is remaining in the food. So it's being secreted by what? By the enzymes that we add. Okay, is the trypsin, the amylase. Amylase will now help to break starch to maltose. Trypsin will break protein to polypeptides. Lipid will break fat to fatty acid and glycerol. Now let's go to the last part of the small intestine. There are three things you must know. These three things: epithelial cells. The epithelial cell is the third phase of the small intestine digestion process. Now, what does it produce? What does it secrete? It secretes intestinal enzymes. The intestinal enzymes. What are these enzymes? The lipase, the protease, and the maltase. The lipase, okay, the protease, and the maltase. Now, the lipase will break fatty food, fat to fatty acid and glycerol. The protease will now finish the job. The polypeptides, the Pepsi changed protein to polypeptides. Even the trypsin changed the protein to polypeptides. Now these polypeptides will now be broken down by protease into amino acid. Then the maltase, another enzyme, will now break the maltose to glucose. So all these are done by the epithelial cells. So you must know the job of these three, and what they secrete, and the enzymes associated with them, and the functions. Okay. So once we're done with this page, we move to section 4, which is absorption. Now in absorption process, how the food is being taken into the body cells. Now let's take a look at that. For absorption to take place, how is the small intestine adapted for absorption? The inner surface has numerous minute finger-like projections called the villi or villi, depending on how you want to call it. This villi, the villi of the small intestine enable absorption to take place. It increases the surface area for absorption. Okay, they can ask this in multiple choice. Which of the following increases the surface area for absorption in the small intestine? It's called what? The villi or microvilli. If they use villi, is the answer. If they use microvilli, it's also the answer. So it's this is a magnified one with the electron microscope. Now let's move at the redrawing, the diagram. How does absorption take place in the small intestine? Okay, you see this is the villi. This is the diagram of the villi. These are the villas. They help to absorb the food. Okay, like the digested food now goes through it into the body cells. Into what? Into the body cells. Into the body cells. So the digestion is possible because the villi has the epithelial cells, right? It has the epithelial cells. You can see this top part is the glucose and the amino acid enters via diffusions and active transport. So the glucose and this one will enter into the villi to go to the rest of the body through what? Diffusion and active transport. Through diffusion and active transport. The fatty acid and glycerol diffuses into the epithelium and recombine to form the fat globus, which enters the lattice of the body. Okay, so the epithelial cells of the villus is singular, enlarged epithelial cells only. So this structure, what it does now, let's explain it. What it does is that it's so designed by our maker to be able to now absorb through digestion and through active transport means to take the food into the body system. Is that okay? Remember, the digested food is now in the solution form. So it's able, it has, when we show the diagram here, earlier on, of course that. Okay, here you can see it's able, it has a link to be able, and it's very soft. It has link, it's able to take in the food, and the food can go to the rest of the body. Now let's take a what happens. What happens after absorption in the small intestine? The blood is now rich in nutrients because the food you eat has nutrients. The blood will now, because the digested food will go to the blood. The blood will now be rich in nutrients and it will be transported to liver. To be transported to liver for assimilation. Most of the absorbed sugar will be converted to glycogen and stored in the liver. Liver is very important, it does a lot of things. It helps to assimilate it. And keep it, okay, for the body whenever the body needs it. So it cannot pass it to the heart and other part to the blood to use whenever they need it. So it helps to assimilate and keep it for. So some glucose that's distributed around the body via blood leaving the liver. The blood will leave the liver and go and distribute to the rest of the body. The liver will help to assimilate and keep it. Okay. So what happens is that the digested food is sent to the liver, it's transported to the liver. It's joined the blood, it's now sent to the liver. The liver will assimilate it. So they can also ask in the exam which of the following organ is responsible for assimilation. Is the liver. Which one is responsible for absorption? Is the small intestine. So you need to know this. Okay, is the small intestine. Okay, so you need to know all of this. Okay. Now if we say some glucose are now distributed we've mentioned this, to the rest of the body via the liver, the blood leaving the liver to the rest of the body cells. Amino acid used for growth and repair by the cells. Used from amino acid also used to form enzymes and hormones. Amino acid is used to form the enzyme you see. It is amino acid that also helps to. Protein is what helps us to form enzyme, also helps us to form hormone. So you see, protein is very important in our food. If you don't eat meat, fish, you are killing yourself because you'll not be able to produce enough enzyme. Beans, enough enzyme, any proteinous food produce enough enzymes in your body, enough hormones in your body. Okay, so absorption in the colon. Now, what is absorbed in the colon? Colon is part of the small intestine. Absorption in the colon is the water that is being absorbed, and mineral ions is absorbed into the bloodstream in the small intestine. The last part, not the least, is to talk about the human dentition. We're talking about the teeth, how it helps us to break the food. Now, the teeth consist of the the incisor, the premolar, the canine, and the molar. The teeth is made up of crown protected by enamel and neck. Crown, which is protected by the enamel. The teeth is also made up of the neck and the root. So we're going to look at the teeth now, the structure of the teeth. Let's take a look at the structure of the teeth. What are the types of teeth and their function? We have all the teeth. The one in the front is the incisor and the canine. The premolar follows. The molar is the last one, which you have, and all the number of teeth in your mouth will be 32 when you get to adulthood. Now let's take a look at the structure of the teeth. The very first part, the white one you see of the teeth, is the enamel. The one that follows the teeth is the dentar. This one that follows the enamel is the dentar. And then the next one is the neck. Between the gum and the enamel is the neck. It's called the neck. Then after that is the gum. This whole thing that looks like flesh is the gum. Is the gum that stick. Then there is a cement. There is a cement that stick the enamel to the gum. It's called cement. Cement helps to seal them. Then we have the jawbone. This lower one, the jawbone. Is the jawbone where the teeth is resting on. The teeth rest on the jawbone. Now this teeth is made up of teeth, can be broken down into three parts. The crown, the upper part, the one you see is the crown, and then we have the root, which is the one that goes inside, and then we have this one, the third one. We mentioned it earlier. The third one is the neck. We have the crown, the neck, and the root. The crown, the neck, and the root. This is the neck. Okay, this is the neck. This is the root. The deep one inside is the root of the teeth. Okay, so you need to know this diagram. You need to be able to draw this diagram, and then we need to include all these ones. We call the pulp cavity. It contains the blood. This one contains, you can see the arteries and the veins, contains the blood and the capillary nerves. This one, the pulp cavity. We need to mention these ones. They are the pulp cavity of the teeth. You need to be able to draw this in the exam, and you need to be able to answer questions on this. Here is exam questions you can try. So with this, we've come to the end of our today's class. Thank you for joining us.